Chosen one, God is revealing your purpose. And I am speaking to you right now because there is something in this moment you were meant to hear. If you move past this too quickly, you may miss the realization that has been trying to find you for longer than you know. Your purpose is beginning to come into view, and the waiting that once felt endless is reaching a turning point. I am drawing back the veil so you can finally begin to understand why you had to walk through certain seasons, why some pain lingered, and why the silence sometimes felt heavier than the questions you were carrying. This is the place where confusion begins giving way to clarity, where pieces of your story that once seemed unrelated start quietly connecting. The calling you have felt but could never fully explain is beginning to make sense in a way it never has before. Stay here and listen closely, because what you recognize in yourself today may change the way you understand everything that brought you here. Type Amen if you feel this message in your spirit. You have spent so much time wondering what your purpose really is, and I have seen every part of that searching. I saw the nights when you questioned your worth, the moments when you watched other people move forward and quietly wondered while your own life seemed to be standing still, and the times you smiled around others while carrying questions you did not know how to explain. I saw how exhausting it became to keep believing when you could not yet see what your faith was leading toward. And I want you to understand this now. Your journey was never wasted. You were not forgotten, and you were not simply waiting for life to finally begin. Something was being formed within you. During those seasons when you could see very little happening on the outside, your purpose was never meant to be something you chased from a place of desperation. It was being developed through the very experiences you once wished you could escape. You are beginning to see that what felt like falling behind was, in many ways, preparation for something you were not yet ready to recognize. Your purpose is connected to the way you feel deeply, to the way you care even after being hurt, and to the part of you that kept getting back up when you had every reason to stay down. There is something I placed within you that has continued returning to your heart, even after you tried to put it aside. That recurring pull matters, and it is time to pay attention to it instead of dismissing it as another passing thought. You are not here by accident, chosen one, and your life carries meaning that reaches further than what you have understood until now. If this is touching something inside you, take a moment to like this video. You have asked for answers, and I am bringing you closer to them, but receiving clarity also requires you to become willing to look honestly at what your life has been teaching you. Your purpose is connected to your strength, but it is also connected to your wounds, because some of the things that changed you most deeply are the very things that taught you how to understand, guide, and encourage someone else. What once felt like a part of your story you wanted to hide may eventually become part of the reason another person realizes they can keep going. You have survived seasons that asked more from you than you thought you could give. And still, you are here. There were moments when you wondered where God was, moments when you felt abandoned, and perhaps even moments when you were tired of asking the same questions because you were afraid there would be no answer. But while you were looking for movement, something was being prepared beyond what you could see. If your purpose had been revealed before you had the strength to carry it, you might have mistaken the weight of it for a reason to turn away. That is why the waiting had a purpose. It was not punishment, and it was not proof that you had been overlooked. It was preparation for the person you were becoming. Now you are beginning to reach a place where you can carry what once would have overwhelmed you. The time has come to step toward what has been forming within you, even if you cannot yet see the entire road. You are entering a season where confusion can give way to a deeper kind of knowing, the kind that does not always arrive with noise or certainty, but settles quietly in your heart. I am teaching you to recognize that inner clarity and to trust it as it grows. You do not need everyone around you to understand what I am placing within you, because their opinions cannot determine the path I have prepared for your life. Type 7777 if you trust God, and remember that your purpose may challenge you, but there will be a deep rightness in following what you know you are being called toward. There will still be moments when doubt returns, because becoming someone new does not mean every fear disappears overnight, but you will begin to recognize the difference between a fear asking you to retreat and a genuine warning asking you to pay attention. You do not need the entire map before you move. Sometimes the next step becomes visible only after you have the courage to take the step in front of you. Your purpose will unfold in that same way. One act of faith, revealing enough of the road for you to keep going. You have been chosen not because you have everything figured out, but because you have continued to show up with a willing heart. Your willingness to keep believing, to keep trying, and to keep moving through seasons that tested you has shaped you in ways you may only now be beginning to recognize. I do not need perfection from you. I am asking for trust. When you trust me, I can guide you through doors you could not have recognized before, protect you through paths you do not yet understand, and walk beside you as your purpose becomes part of your everyday life. Your purpose is not something you are meant to carry alone. There will be people who cross your path because of what you have lived through, and some of them will recognize something in you before you fully recognize it in yourself. Your story will speak to people who are still standing in places you once knew intimately, because the struggles you thought disqualified you may become the very experiences that allow you to understand them. You may not see the full reach of your life yet, but what you have survived and what you have learned can become a light for someone who is still searching for a way forward. I am beginning to lift the confusion from your mind and replace it with a steadier peace. The fear that once kept you frozen can begin giving way to courage, not because everything around you suddenly becomes easy, but because something within you is becoming settled. You may notice a quiet confidence appearing in places where anxiety used to live, a feeling that tells you, even without having every answer, that you are moving in the right direction. That inner shift matters, chosen one, because it is part of you awakening to what has been within you all along. You were never as lost as you believed. You were being guided through a path you could not yet understand, and now the meaning of that path is beginning to come into focus. Your life may have looked different from the lives of the people around you, but different does not mean misplaced, and a delayed answer does not mean a forgotten prayer. Type Horny 11 if you believe, and hold on to what is becoming clear within you. Your purpose will not necessarily arrive as one dramatic moment where every question is answered at once. It will continue unfolding as you walk, as you make choices, as you become more honest about what brings life into your spirit and what quietly drains it. The first step is awareness, and that is what is beginning to open within you now. An awareness of who you are, what you carry, and why certain parts of your story had to unfold the way they did. What once looked like a collection of random delays, unexpected turns, and closed doors may begin to look different when you see the pattern from where you stand now. You are not being pushed away from your purpose. You are being redirected toward it. There may still be moments when your mind questions what your spirit is beginning to recognize, especially because the right path can feel unfamiliar when you have spent so long following what other people expected of you. But there is a quieter knowing growing within you, and as you learn to trust it, your decisions will begin to change. Certain choices may feel right even when the people around you cannot understand why, because your purpose was never meant to be explained perfectly to everyone else. It was meant to be lived by you. There were seasons when you quietly wondered whether your life was going anywhere at all. You watched other people move forward while your own life seemed suspended in place. And there may have been nights when you lay awake, wondering whether you had somehow misunderstood the direction you were meant to take. You saw other people reaching milestones while you were still waiting for something inside you to make sense, and the silence could make you question your own worth. But chosen one, I want you to understand something you could not fully see while you were living through it. That stillness was never the same as stagnation. Some of the deepest preparation of your life happened in seasons when there was very little visible evidence that anything was changing. Growth does not always announce itself through accomplishments, movement, or something you can point to and say, "There it is." Sometimes it happens in the way you begin thinking differently after a painful experience, in the way an old wound gradually loses its ability to make your decisions for you, or in the strength you discover after believing you had reached the end of what you could endure. There were things being rearranged within you, while the outside of your life seemed almost painfully quiet. That hidden work has been happening longer than you realize. and now you are beginning to see traces of it in the way you respond, choose, and carry yourself. What was once buried beneath the surface is slowly becoming visible. You are noticing things now that you once would have overlooked. An idea keeps returning to you even after you tell yourself to forget it. The desire continues tugging gently at your heart, or a certain direction keeps appearing in front of you, through conversations, opportunities, or moments you never planned. Pay attention to those repetitions, because sometimes what continues returning is asking you to look closer, rather than simply dismissing it as coincidence. I am guiding you toward what belongs to your path, even when the shape of that path looks different from what you imagined it would look like. You may have expected one clear road, while I have been teaching you to recognize the next step through the patterns appearing along the way. You may have spent a long time asking for one unmistakable sign, something so obvious that you could finally stop questioning yourself and feel completely certain about what comes next. But sometimes confirmation arrives more quietly than that, almost like a thought that refuses to disappear, or a possibility that keeps crossing your path when you thought you had moved on from it. It can be a door that keeps appearing in different forms, a desire that survives every attempt to talk yourself out of it, or a deep sense that you are being drawn towards something you cannot fully explain yet. You do not need every confirmation to arrive dramatically. Trust what continues to meet you, because your purpose may be revealing itself through repetition, through recognition, and through the quiet persistence of what keeps returning to your heart. And you may feel something changing in you now, a kind of urgency that makes you wonder whether it is finally time to move. Listen carefully to that feeling, because there is a difference between panic that demands an immediate answer and a deeper knowing that quietly tells you it is time to stop postponing what you already sense. This does not have to mean you are being pushed or rushed. Sometimes it simply means your inner knowing has grown stronger than your hesitation. You do not need every answer before you begin, because clarity often develops through movement rather than appearing beforehand. The next part of your purpose may become visible only after you are willing to take the step that, somewhere within you, you already know is yours to take. There are also parts of yourself you have kept hidden for a long time. Maybe you learned to make your dreams smaller because being ambitious made other people uncomfortable, or you became quiet about certain gifts because you were afraid they would be misunderstood. Perhaps there were desires you called unrealistic because admitting how deeply you wanted them would have made disappointment feel more painful. You may even have become so accustomed to adapting yourself that you forgot what it felt like to speak honestly about what matters to you. But those parts of you deserve to be seen, because what makes you different may also be connected to what you are here to express. I created you with intention, and there is meaning in the parts of yourself you have spent years trying to understand. You do not have to become someone else to walk in your purpose. You are learning to stop abandoning yourself simply to belong in places where you have to constantly edit who you are. The more honestly you accept yourself, the less energy you will spend performing a version of yourself that was never sustainable. You will begin to feel the relief that comes when you no longer have to keep explaining every part of your heart. And from that acceptance, your confidence will begin to feel natural instead of forced, because you will finally be standing on something that belongs to you. Type 1212. If you walk by faith, you have compared your life to other people's lives for long enough, measuring your progress against timelines that were never designed for you. Every time you looked sideways, you made it harder to hear what was happening within you, because comparison fills your mind with someone else's destination, while your own path is quietly asking for your attention. You may have celebrated someone else's progress, and then gone home wondering why your own season still looked so different, carrying a private disappointment you rarely admitted out loud. Your journey was never supposed to look like theirs, and what I placed within you does not need to be duplicated, explained, or compared to have value. Bring your attention back to yourself now, to what you feel, what keeps returning to your heart, and what brings you closer to the person you are becoming. You may notice that certain things no longer interest you the way they once did, and you might even feel guilty about that change because you remember how much those things once mattered. But sometimes losing interest is simply evidence that you have outgrown the identity that once needed them. Your purpose requires room to breathe, And making that room may mean gently releasing habits, expectations, relationships, or ambitions that no longer fit the person you are becoming. You are allowed to recognize that something once served you without carrying it into every season that follows. Letting go can still hurt even when you know it is right. You can miss a person, a place, a dream, or an older version of yourself, and still understand that returning to the way things were would mean returning to a version of yourself you have already begun to outgrow. Growth does not erase the meaning of what came before. Sometimes it simply changes the place that memory holds inside you. You can feel gratitude and grief at the same time, and you can honor what something meant without asking it to remain forever. You are not being emptied so that you can become less. You are making space for something that fits the person you are becoming. There is a strength rising within you that you may still underestimate. It is the strength that carried you through moments when you had no clear answer, the strength that kept you moving after disappointment, and the strength that remained even when your confidence disappeared for a while. Think about how many times you believed you had reached your limit and somehow found enough within yourself to face another morning, another decision, another difficult conversation, another uncertain step. You have already lived through proof that you can endure more than you once believed. Now I am asking you to recognize that strength, because it will help you walk into what comes next with a steadier heart and a deeper trust in what you have already survived. You will begin to encounter opportunities that feel connected to who you are becoming. They may arrive differently than you expected, and they may not immediately resemble the answer you imagined when you first prayed for direction. Some may even look ordinary at first, which is why discernment will matter more than excitement alone. You will not need to force yourself into every open door, simply because it is available. Learn to notice the difference between chasing something because you are afraid of missing out and moving towards something because your spirit feels quietly awake, because something within you recognizes that the opportunity is asking you to grow rather than asking you to abandon yourself. There may still be fear when you step forward, and that does not automatically mean you have chosen the wrong direction. Sometimes fear appears precisely because something matters, because you are leaving what is familiar and entering territory where the older version of you cannot control the outcome. You may feel your mind searching for every possible reason to wait, even while another part of you knows that remaining exactly where you are has its own cost. Do not make fear the voice that decides your future. Let it remind you that you are stretching beyond what you have known, and then keep listening for the deeper knowing beneath it. Your purpose will require courage, but you do not have to manufacture that courage all at once, or pretend that you feel stronger than you actually do. I will meet you in the moment you need it, and then in the next moment, and then again after that. Sometimes courage will look like taking a major step, and sometimes it will look much quieter, like sending the message, beginning the work, speaking honestly, or refusing to return to something that repeatedly diminished you. You are learning to trust yourself at a deeper level, and that trust will become one of the quietest forms of strength you carry. When you trust the knowing I placed within you, you are also learning to trust me more deeply. Doubt may return, chosen one, but its return does not mean you have lost your way. You will become better at recognizing the difference between a genuine question that deserves reflection and the old hesitation that simply wants to keep you inside what feels familiar. You do not have to argue with every doubtful thought or spend your energy proving yourself against it. You can acknowledge it, breathe, remember what you have already learned, and continue choosing what you know aligns with your purpose. Doubt can visit without becoming your decision-maker. The fact that you feel uncertain sometimes does not erase everything you have already learned about yourself. Be patient with yourself as this unfolds. Purpose rarely arrives as one complete answer placed perfectly in front of you. It reveals itself through seasons, decisions, relationships, endings, beginnings, and the small choices you make when nobody else is watching. There will be days when everything seems to move quickly, and other days when you feel as though you are standing still again, wondering whether you have somehow returned to an old season. Both can belong to the same journey, and neither means you have been forgotten. Some answers need time to become recognizable because you are still becoming the person who can understand what they mean. Trust the timing, because there is still work happening in places you cannot see. You are exactly where you need to be in this moment, even if this moment does not yet resemble the life you have been praying for, or the picture you once carried in your mind. The more honestly you step into your purpose, the more you will begin to recognize a kind of peace you may have been searching for outside yourself, in approval, certainty, or circumstances, finally becoming perfect. It is not the peace that comes from having a life without difficulty. It is the quieter peace of knowing you are finally walking in a direction that feels true, even while the road continues to unfold. That peace will remain meaningful even when another challenge appears. It will remind you that you are supported, that you are being guided, and that you do not have to understand every part of the road before taking the next step. Chosen one, you have already come through seasons that once felt impossible to survive, and now you are learning how to move forward without needing every answer first. The path is still unfolding, and there may still be moments when you pause to breathe and gather your courage, but you are no longer walking through it as the person you used to be. There is something different about the way you are beginning to live now, chosen one. You're becoming less willing to spend your life moving in circles, waiting for someone else to confirm what you have already been sensing quietly within yourself. Little by little, pieces of your life that once seemed unrelated are beginning to connect, and experiences that once left you confused are starting to carry a meaning you can finally recognize. You are beginning to understand why certain seasons had to unfold the way they did, why certain distractions lost their appeal, and why your heart kept returning to the same deeper questions. You are being prepared for a life that feels more honest, more fulfilling, and more closely connected to who you were created to become. This is more than a passing feeling that disappears when circumstances change. Your purpose is beginning to enter the ordinary places of your life, shaping the choices you make when no one is watching, the things you are willing to give your energy to, and the direction you are becoming willing to follow. You may notice that you are searching less for some dramatic answer because you are beginning to recognize the smaller confirmations already appearing in your daily life. A decision feels clearer, a certain path feels lighter, or something you once tolerated suddenly feels impossible to carry any longer. You are searching less because you are beginning to recognize more, and as you continue becoming, your understanding of your purpose will continue opening in ways that feel deeper, quieter, and increasingly personal. There was a time when you needed other people to tell you which way to turn, and their certainty could easily become louder than your own inner voice. You may have asked everyone else what they thought while quietly wondering why their answers never fully settled something inside you. Now you are learning to listen to that quieter knowing, the voice within you that does not need to shout to be heard. I am guiding you through it, helping you recognize the difference between what brings genuine peace and what repeatedly pulls you away from yourself. You are becoming more connected to your purpose, and that connection is changing the way you decide where your time, attention, and energy truly belong. You may even notice yourself walking away from things that once consumed you. And at first that change may feel strange enough to make you question yourself. A conversation that once occupied your thoughts for hours may no longer have the same power. And a situation you once felt desperate to hold together may simply stop feeling worth the cost. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming more discerning about what you allow to occupy your spirit. Your purpose requires room to breathe, and you are learning that protecting what matters can be an act of wisdom rather than something you need to feel guilty about. You are beginning to understand not only what you want, but why it matters to you. And that deeper understanding will keep you steady when everything around you begins to shift. Your journey has its own pace, and you are learning to respect it instead of constantly measuring yourself against someone else's progress. There will be moments when you look at another person's life and wonder whether you should have arrived somewhere by now, especially when their success seems visible while your own growth has happened quietly. But their timing was never meant to become the measure of your own. You are not late because your path looks different, and you are not behind because some of your most important growth happened when no one could see it. Trust the timing, because some things had to become rooted deeply within you before they could become visible through you. Type 777 if you trust God. There may still be moments when your faith is tested, moments when an unexpected delay or difficult circumstance brings old questions back to the surface. But you are meeting those moments as someone who has already survived seasons that once felt impossible to survive. When doubt returns, you will have the memory of everything you have already walked through, and that memory will remind you that one difficult moment does not determine the direction of your entire life. Your faith is becoming steadier because it has been tested by real life, by waiting, disappointment, uncertainty, and still choosing to keep your heart open. And now, chosen one, you are beginning to understand that your purpose carries responsibility as well as meaning. It is not only about what happens inside your own life, it is also reflected in the way you treat people, the choices you make when no one is applauding, and the presence you bring into the lives around you. The way you live may speak long before you ever explain yourself, and the way you carry what you have been through can quietly give another person permission to keep going. You have been entrusted with something meaningful, and you are becoming capable of carrying it without needing to prove yourself to everyone who watches your journey. Let that realization settle gently within you, because purpose becomes stronger when it is carried with humility rather than performance. There is a quiet peace beginning to take root within you, and perhaps you recognize it precisely because it feels different from excitement. Excitement rises and falls with circumstances, but this peace has a deeper quality. It can remain present even when you still have questions and the road ahead has not fully revealed itself. It does not depend on everything going perfectly. It comes from the feeling that you are finally walking in a direction that belongs to you, rather than one you chose simply to satisfy someone else's expectations. Even when uncertainty remains, something inside you is becoming calmer because you no longer need every answer before taking the next step. Hold on to that peace, because it will help you recognize the path when the outside world becomes noisy again, and everyone seems to have an opinion about where you should go. You are also beginning to see the patterns you once repeated without understanding why you kept returning to them. The choices that kept you stuck are losing their hold, and you are becoming more intentional about what you build from this point forward. You are learning that transformation often happens quietly, through the boundary you finally keep, the conversation you choose not to repeat, the opportunity you have the courage to accept, or the old pattern you decide to leave behind. This new path is being shaped through ordinary decisions, through what you release, what you protect, and the courage you show when you choose what truly matters. You are building a life that reflects your purpose, and for the first time, you are beginning to recognize yourself inside it. There will be opportunities that ask more from you than simply saying yes. They may arrive looking unfamiliar, perhaps at a moment when you are finally beginning to feel comfortable with where you are. And for a moment you may wonder whether you are truly ready for what is being placed in front of you. You may then find yourself thinking about all the reasons to wait, especially when the next step carries a level of uncertainty you cannot control. Chosen one, remember that growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. But that discomfort can become the doorway through which you discover a strength you had not yet learned to trust. Your purpose was never meant to keep you exactly where you feel safest. It is meant to stretch you gently beyond the identity you have already outgrown. You are also being asked to trust what is unfolding when the whole picture remains hidden from you. There will be moments when you look at your circumstances and wonder how the pieces could possibly belong together, especially when one door seems delayed while another has not yet appeared. But I am arranging things beyond what you can currently see, bringing people opportunities and timing together in ways that may only become clear when you look back and realize why certain things had to happen in the order they did. What feels uncertain today can still be moving towards something meaningful. So let yourself breathe through the unanswered questions and trust the process without demanding every answer at once. You are becoming more conscious of the thoughts you carry and the patterns you have allowed to shape your decisions. You are beginning to notice what happens inside you before you react, which fears make you retreat, which doubts make you question yourself, and which thoughts quietly convince you to remain where you have already stopped growing. Slowly, you are learning to make room for thoughts that strengthen you instead of returning you to the same fear, doubt, and hesitation. This is part of your preparation because your purpose begins to change the way you see yourself, before it changes the way you move through the world. You are not simply choosing different actions. You are learning to think from a different place, one that gives your future room to become possible. And there is a quiet confidence growing inside you now, chosen one, the kind that does not need to announce itself or convince anyone that it exists. You may notice it in small moments. First, like the way you speak your mind more calmly, the way you stop explaining every decision, or the way certain opinions no longer have the power to shake you as deeply as they once did. Other people may begin to notice this change before you fully recognize it in yourself, because it comes from something deeper than approval. You are becoming more certain of who you are, and more willing to trust what you know in your spirit, and this confidence will not need to be forced. It will become steadier each time you honor what you already know and continue walking forward. You are learning how to move even when certainty has not arrived yet. That matters because your purpose is no longer something you only imagine somewhere in the distance. It is beginning to appear in the way you think, the choices you make, the boundaries you keep, and the way you respond to your life when no one else is watching. Even the small decisions you make in private are shaping the direction you are taking. And those quiet choices often reveal more about who you are becoming than the dramatic moments ever could. You may not see the full picture yet, but every sincere step is bringing you closer to the life you are learning to carry, one decision at a time. There were seasons when you watched everything around you seem to move, while your own life felt painfully still. You saw other people changing, building, succeeding, or finding their direction. And there may have been nights when you wondered whether something was wrong with you, because your own progress felt so difficult to measure. You questioned your worth and your direction, while something deeper was quietly taking root beneath the surface. Like roots growing in darkness where no one can see them, you were developing strength during a season that offered very little visible proof. And now that hidden strength is beginning to rise into your life, supporting the purpose that has been developing within you all along. You are also beginning to realize that you have spent a long time looking outward for something to tell you who you are. You looked at other people's choices, approval, expectations, and achievements, hoping one of them might give you the certainty you could not yet find within yourself. The answers you were searching for have been closer than you thought, waiting beneath the noise for you to become quiet enough to recognize them. Listen carefully to that inner voice, because I have been teaching you to recognize the difference between fear that makes you shrink and the deeper knowing that gently brings you back to yourself. When you honor that knowing, your next step may not become completely clear, but it becomes clear enough to take. There is a different kind of courage rising within you now. It does not need to be dramatic, and it does not require you to feel fearless. It simply gives you enough strength to take the next step, while uncertainty is still present, even when your hands are not completely steady and your questions have not all been answered. When doubt returns, this courage will remind you that uncertainty does not erase everything you have already learned. You can keep moving while still learning, keep believing while still asking questions, and keep becoming while still carrying parts of yourself that are healing. I am not asking you to know the entire road today. I am asking you to trust enough to continue walking it, and your purpose is larger than a single title, position, or role you may one day hold. It can move through every part of your life, through the way you speak when someone needs encouragement, the way you treat people when there is nothing to gain, the way you carry yourself through difficult seasons, and the presence you bring into ordinary moments that may seem insignificant to you. What has been placed within you is not confined to one narrow expression. It can become visible through many different parts of who you are, sometimes in ways you recognize only afterward. Type Eldon 1 to affirm that you are ready to honor what is awakening within you and to give it room to become part of the life you are already living. There will be moments when you sense that you are approaching something larger than the version of yourself you have known. You may feel excitement alongside hesitation, because stepping into unfamiliar territory can stir hope and fear at the same time, especially when you realize that moving forward may require you to leave behind habits, identities, or comforts that once felt familiar. But do not mistake that hesitation for a sign that you should remain small. Sometimes the very thing that makes you pause is revealing how deeply this next step matters to you. You were not created to spend your life shrinking yourself to fit inside places that no longer have room for who you are becoming. And there comes a moment when you have to let yourself step forward even before you feel completely ready.